Well, I understand. I just personally don't see it as an infringement because, like we just said, and I think we agreed that owning a gun is a right. However, I think it was responsibilities. But also I wanted to ask, is voting a right or is that a privilege?
Well, it is a right, and so felons can get their rights back, right? And so, but rights can be suspended or delayed, and we both agree with that. So, for example, like somebody in prison doesn't get guns.
Right. No, of course.
Somebody in prison doesn't have the same free speech rights that you might have.
But what's the first thing that you have to do if you want to vote in this country? You have to register, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a federal registration to be able to vote in this country. So why not, and we can agree that, keeping safe and, keeping our elections to where people who shouldn't vote aren't voting is, that's keeping America safe because we don't want people who
That's a fair point. I would say there's something, there's a technical difference between a voter registration roll and a gun registration roll.
Guns are much more dangerous.
Well, also, but guns in many different ways, they would go after the guns a lot more than the voter registration roll.
Well,
my worldview comes out of one in the 20th century, where almost every totalitarian government went after the guns first. And the confiscation of guns then leads into the erosion of freedom and liberty.
Right, but wouldn't you say in the 20th century, as you just said, that the disparity between the technology that citizens had to protect themselves compared to what the military had, wouldn't you say that there was a much smaller disparity as opposed to what we see nowadays?
Somewhat. I think that's a fair point.
So
I'm acknowledging that's a fair point.
Okay.
What's up, YouTube? Hope you guys are feeling good. Today, guys, we're back here in this new video. Today, we're going to check it out. This is the best gun debate I have had in years. This is by Charlie Kirk. I call him Charlie Kick because he loves kicking us. Let's get right into today's video, guys.
Hey, Charlie, how are you? So I just had a question on your thoughts on if we need more gun control in the country or not. I'm very pro protecting America and the citizens that live in it. And so I think that we should have more gun control because there's a lot of school shootings that happen, as we mentioned. And, I just think it would do a lot to protect the people. And I think the Second Amendment also qualifies that we should have regulations for guns. I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Sure. Do you think gun ownership is a right or a privilege?
I think it's a right, but it comes with responsibilities.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, I think that there should be things in place, things like red flag laws and things like that. The AG just approved Mel Gibson to get his gun rights back, even though he had a domestic violence charge. So, I don't think the people that commit these violent crimes should be able to buy guns and things like that. And I think we should have red flag laws in place to make sure that those violent criminals aren't getting guns.
Okay, so let's go. So tell me, in your perfect world, what would constitute a red flag?
Just things like, we can look into any kind of medication and things like that that can affect someone's...
That could be dangerous, right? That could be there's a lot of vets that come home from war and that are on a lot of medication. A lot of vets could have their weapons taken away.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying... Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you. It's the pollen or something. Thank you.
I'm not necessarily saying, it's mainly to prevent, future shootings and things like that, and also... putting in place things like a federal registry so that we know, the types of guns that people have. And, it would just essentially be a federal registry that shows these are the guns that this person has, in case a cop has to go on something like a domestic call. That's the most dangerous call they can go on. So,
yeah, I could see you're coming after this from a good perspective. Let me ask one other question. What would you say is the ultimate and final purpose of the Second Amendment?
I think it's self-defense against a tyrannical government, which...
We agree. Sure. Great. Keep going.
Well, but I think within the Second Amendment, it also implies that we have high regulations in the first four words.
Sort of. Well-regulated militia actually meant well-armed, but that's a separate issue. But
well, how do you know? You're interpreting what the Founding Fathers
Well, they said it in the Federalist Papers, right? So it's not just me, but also in the Heller decision, in the 5-4 decision, that said that gun ownership was a right. This was a hotly debated thing.
But so do you disagree? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you disagree with the idea of a federal registry like that?
Oh, without a doubt. The only reason you'd want to register the guns is if you want to confiscate them.
Well, or to make sure that people like officers of the law are protected and know what they're going into. A domestic...
That's a good argument,
right?
To your credit. I will try to make a better argument where the problem of the government knowing where every gun is would then lead itself towards mass confiscation. And I would agree with you, a well-armed citizenry is the greatest protectorate of liberty and freedom in this country.
Even though the Army has things like drones and tanks and things like that outarm, citizens that have
Yes and no. We've seen it in several instances where at least a citizen, that's a good argument, but I would say a little flawed, where the citizens are able to protect themselves in some ways. It's a much harder population to control.
I understand, but so you think a federal registry would infringe on the rights?
Potentially. I think that there's no good argument, other than potential. I ascribe to the government bad motives and bad intentions when it wants to infringe more on these types of freedoms and liberties.
Well, I understand. I just personally don't see it as an infringement because, like we just said, and I think we agreed that owning a gun is a right. However, I
Yes,
think it's
true.
responsibilities. But also, I wanted to ask: is voting a right, or is that a privilege?
Well, it is a right, and that's so felons can get their rights back, right? And so,
Right.
but rights can be suspended or delayed, and we
Right,
both agree
but-
with that. So,
right,
for
but-
example, like somebody in prison doesn't get guns.
Right. No, of course.
Somebody in prison doesn't have the same free speech rights that you might
Right,
have.
but what's the first thing that you have to do if you want to vote in this country? You have to register, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a federal registration to be able to vote in this country. So why not, and we can agree that, keeping safe and, keeping our elections to where people who shouldn't vote aren't voting is, that's keeping America safe because we don't want people who
That's a fair. That's a
can't
fair
vote.
point. I would say there's something that there's a technical difference between a voter registration roll and a gun registration
Right, guns
roll.
are much more dangerous.
Well, also, but guns in many different ways, they would go after the guns a lot more than the voter registration roll.
Well, how do we know, though?
my worldview comes out of one in the 20th century, where almost every totalitarian government went after the guns first, and the confiscation of guns then leads into the erosion of freedom and liberty.
Right, but wouldn't you say in the 20th century, as you just said, that the disparity between the technology that citizens had to protect themselves compared to what the military had, wouldn't you say that there was a much smaller disparity as opposed to what we see
Somewhat.
nowadays?
I think that's a fair point.
It's true.
So,
I'm acknowledging that's a fair point.
okay.
But do you see my perspective as well?
No, I do
that,
understand.
That in
It's-
armed
it's-
citizenry, also it says shall not be infringed, so we have to kind of wrestle with those two things
Right, but
simultaneously.
so if it's just a semantics argument, then to that point,
Well, it's not. I mean, semantics is meaning. That's literally what the word means. But
right, but
so,
you're saying because it says shall not be infringed, we can't do anything. But
No,
does
no,
that
I'm
mean,
saying,
does that
though,
mean
that
voting rights can be
I'm
infringed?
saying
Because it doesn't say it cannot be infringed.
I'm saying I err on the side that more government regulation around guns means that they'll try to take good people's guns away, which then results in less global or let's just say national.
I understand, but wouldn't you say that that more guns can potentially lead to more danger and less guns?
Yes
would
and
lead to less
no.
danger?
I mean, there's plenty of evidence to show that states that have more. So, like, if you take Houston and Chicago, about comparable populations, Houston actually has warmer weather, which means potentially more gang violence. They have about half, if not even less, the amount of homicides per year than in Chicago. Chicago has much stricter gun laws than Houston, like incredibly strict gun laws.
I understand, but I'm also, well, I think part of what plays into that is the gun laws that are around those cities. They're a lot more lenient than those cities themselves. So I think, I'm not saying that's entirely the cause of it, but I'm saying
I've heard that my whole life, so yeah.
Right, but I'm basically just talking about preventing people that have committed crimes such as domestic violence. I know I mentioned Pam Bondi gave Mel Gibson his rights to purchase a gun again, even though he pled guilty to a battery domestic violence charge in 2011, and yet now he is able to purchase a gun again, which I disagree with because he committed a violent crime. I mean, do you disagree with that personally?
No, I mean, I don't know the details of the case, but I think I've met Mel Gibson. I think he should be able to own a gun. I mean, like
Just off of speaking to him, though, even though with his
yeah, I
criminal
mean,
history. And
I don't.
everything?
Again, I don't know all the details. Do I think that the idea of taking his rights away because of something that happened that I don't know all the details about 14
Well, he
years
pled
ago?
guilty to it, though.
Again,
I mean,
I find that to be a little bit of an infringement on basic rights.
even though he literally
Again, I
committed
don't know the
violence against
details
his life.
around that, but I guess we're getting to a place where do you think anyone that's convicted of violent crime should be able to own guns again?
No, not at
Oh,
all.
wow,
If they're
okay.
committing a violent crime, absolutely not. I think we should protect people in America,
Sure.
which I think you agree with, and I think
Yeah,
that
but
is how we protect America.
that's a balance. Are we going to really say the federal government is going to protect us from ourselves when it comes to guns?
No, I mean it's less about the federal government taking away guns and more just allowing them to protect their citizens. And it's not about getting rid of guns. I'm a gun owner myself. I go hunting.
I'm
I was
not
on a
doubting any of that.
competitive
What
team.
state
but,
would you say has the gun laws that are the most appealing to your worldview?
I don't know specific state laws, if I'm being completely honest with you. But
something to think about.
But I'm speaking, even just the federal registry itself, I think that would protect, a lot of officers of the law. Like I said, when they go on domestic calls, that's the most dangerous call that an officer
So
of the law
there is
can go on.
there's an informal registry, not a formal one. Just so you know, gun dealers are supposed to report
Right,
gun,
but do you
gun
really
sales.
think that they do all the time, though?
No, of course not. Obviously, I mean,
Right,
I
so
live in
wouldn't the
reality.
federal
but
registry eliminate that problem then?
again, I would go back to a formal registry. You register in order to confiscate. It is a prerequisite towards confiscation.
Isn't that just a
I will
slippery slope
not-
argument, though? If you give
Well,
one
it's
thing,
not.
then
It's
another
a,
thing's
it's a
going to go?
historical argument, right? We see that throughout totalitarian dictatorships throughout the 20th century, where if you want to take the weapons away, you first ask for a collection of all the
The
items
weapons,
that you
yeah.
then want to collect. But I could see you. Look, you're coming after this in good faith. I tend to be on a much more libertarian side, even though I'm not libertarian, where we actually need looser gun laws because I think that
Looser gun laws.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
what
especially in
way?
states like Chicago and Illinois, where it's very basic Second Amendment rights. So I'll give you a great example.
Okay.
In a state like Rhode Island or New York,
Right.
it could take a woman upwards of 30 days to get a gun. So let's say a man wants to actually do harm to her, and she gets threats, and the police won't intervene. I think she should be able to get a gun that afternoon to protect herself.
I understand that.
So
but
in that case, I think that gun laws should be looser.
I understand.
I think
in that regard, I do agree with you.
Cool. So like
Absolutely.
that would be an instance of that. And I also will go back to this idea of red flag laws. We have seen case after case of it being abused, of veterans having their weapons taken away because of fake accusations and, let's just say, faulty accusations, saying that they're mentally unbalanced, so on and so forth.
But do you think that they could investigate cases like that and see if there aren't any medications? I mean, a lot of these
They can.
antidepressants can change your brain
For
chemistry.
sure.
completely
And some of it,
alter
though,
you.
is they take the guns away first and they ask questions after. It's a difficult, very, I don't want to say gray area, but edge part of the law where I tend to, and a respectable position, respect to you, I tend to err on the side of it is a right. The government screws up more than it does correct in this specific portion. And the downside to having more guns is far better than the downside of having only the government have guns.
Even if that can cost American lives, though? I mean, me personally, I would give
Well-
up all of my guns in a heartbeat if I knew for a fact that it was going to save one life.
Can I do a thought experiment to you?
Sure.
So do you think we should ban driving?
No, I don't think so. And I know where you're going with this. 'Cause car crashes are more.
55,000 people a year die from car accidents, right?
Right,
So
absolutely. But those are accidents, though. That's not someone intentionally
Well,
going
that's
and
not
killing
true.
somebody.
Some people intentionally do, or some people have DUIs, right? Some of it is
Right.
an act of agency, not just accidents, right? Meaning that they are reckless with the technology.
I understand.
You would agree a DUI is a reckless act.
Oh, for sure.
And that's a
absolutely.
vast majority of auto deaths,
Right.
both in the interior of the vehicle and the exterior.
Right, but then what do you have to do to be able to drive, though? You have to get a driver's license. You have to take a test with an
No,
instructor.
of course, but I'm saying if the pursuit of to save, if it's all about saving lives, then
Yeah.
then there are certain things that we'd get rid of. I would say though that government is not merely there for our safety. It's one of the primary focuses. You have to balance liberty and safety, and that's a tough balance at times. I fall on this issue on the side of liberty. Final thought.
So what? Yeah, just one last quick question, I promise. What about something, as I mentioned, with taking a driving test to be able to get a driver's license, you have to prove that you know how to operate the vehicle safely. What about something similar to that with owning a gun? Some kind of thing where you go to a range with a trained professional,
No.
you show that
True,
you know
I
how to
suppose
operate the
that's-
gun, safely, know how to store it safely, things like that. Yet,
Yeah, I mean,
and then
so-
once you pass that, you get some kind of card that allows you to buy a gun.
Sure.
I
I mean,
I
that's
Makes
it's all
sense.
about
that-
protections. It's not about
yes,
restricting
on
rights.
that you might have some agreement with me, because actually the number one cause of errant gun deaths is accidental discharges. People that don't know what they're doing with their gun.
I understand.
And so I think that could be prevented through better training. So for that, I actually might have some middle ground.
Okay, I appreciate it. Hope you and your family had a blessed Easter. God
Thank
bless
you.
everybody.
God bless you. Great job. Thank you.
Okay, I love this guy. This is one of the best gun debates I watched. It's very, very interesting and precise. The guy knows what he's talking about, and I try to respect his feedback 100%. For me, I feel like someone who has a past or some history with gun violence ought not to own a gun. And for that, I disagree with Charlie. I feel like the person ought not to hold a gun. Like for instance, when the person actually killed someone, it's not like a mistake or an error. Actually, you used the gun and killed someone. I feel like the person ought not to own a gun, even if the person has been convicted and the person after some years he came out from jail and he's not a free man. The person ought not to own a gun. For me, if you ask me, I totally support with the guy concerning that. And also number two, I feel like there should be gun regulation or gun control in the aspect of like everyone, before you can have a gun or own a gun, you ought to have like a license in a way, like you have gone for training. You understand that, okay, you are certified to own a gun, you have gone through a ranch and have some training, and you are actually good, even if not perfect, good with holding a gun and also how to use it. You understand? I totally support with this guy, like 100%. Like the guy's perspective and viewpoint about things is so amazing. Like so amazing. I also know where Charlie's coming from. Charlie do not want the government to regulate gun in the aspect of like government having full details and also restricting guns from the citizen. That is going against our Second Amendment right, which is terrible. I do not support the government going against our rights to own a gun, because every American have the right to own a gun. Absolutely, that is a right that have been there for our founding fathers. So that is the aspect that Charlie do not want to support. The aspect of government regulating guns, in knowing the details, and also every single person who owns a gun. You understand? In that way, like, government has the right to go take or make people submit their gun. Charlie do not want that, because by doing that, we are going against our Second Amendment to freedom of rights. Charlie feels that a day can come that the government can go against his own citizen. You understand? So I try to understand that, because sometimes such things have actually occurred before in history, and history can actually repeat itself. So it's best that all citizens tend to own their own gun without government interfering in that. You understand? As long as it's your right, like right of freedom of speech right now, the First Amendment, government should not interfere in that. You understand? It's the same thing with the Second Amendment. Government should not interfere with our right of owning a gun, our right to protect ourselves when it's absolutely needed. People who do not actually support others owning a gun, that for me, I feel like they are not actually been in a situation of helplessness. They're not actually been in a situation when the cops are not there or the police are not there, and also there's no other person there to help you aside you having a kitchen knife, and the person who is coming to attack you, some psychopaths. I mean, there's a lot of psychopaths, guys. Someone who's coming to attack you, or a burglar who's coming to attack you, actually is with a gun. Or burglars who's come to attack you, they're actually with a gun. And the only thing you have is a kitchen knife. So it's very, very important that every single American, as you are above the age of 18, going upward, is, let me say 20, let me give the word 20, upward, should have the right to own a gun. You understand? Should have the right to own a gun. Like, if you want to go get a gun, just show them your ID, that you're above the age, then within a few minutes, you've gotten a gun. You understand? I feel like every American ought to have that right to own a gun, 100%. I feel like that right should not be taken off, irrespective of any regulation the government wants to pass. That right to own a gun should not be taken off. I know there's a lot of gun shooting, some gun violence in schools and stuff like that, but if you check those things, most of the gun violence in schools are kids taking guns from their parents' houses, and also going to school to create some havoc. And I feel like there should be police officers in schools, if you ask me, who are there to watch over the students and stuff like that. I feel like those things are actually necessary. These are the things Charlie is actually fighting for. There should be cops in schools who are there to also protect students, not just normal security guard in school. You understand? So this was actually beautiful to watch. The debate was actually respectful and peaceful and polite. This is the best gun debate that I actually agreed with the students, even more than Charlie, because this guy's perspective and way of thinking is 100% right. 100%. I respect him big time. I wish I could know his name, then I'll go make research and try to follow him on IG or also on YouTube. The guy does give me insights, massive insights. I love the entire discussion. It's actually a respectful one and beautiful one that's actually I feel like it's good. It's really, really good. Comment down below what you think about this video. Give us a thumbs up, share this video as many as can. Subscribe to our channel, guys. I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure you stay safe.